start recording now. And yeah, I guess the general idea here is, and I mean, we have planned this call for over a year. I realized that I uploaded this video, if I'm not mistaken, in January 2019. And right after the video came out, you were like, boy, we need to talk. And I'm like, sure, I'm up for it. And it's now over a year later, and we finally have found time for this call. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I expect mostly an ass whooping for me because this was just a fun video where I just bullshitted a lot of the stuff. But I'm looking forward to being taught in the ways of the Superman.
All right. So first and foremost, when I go through these points,
Yes.
if one of these was just a pun or something, just let me know because I don't want to interpret
Absolutely.
your joke as a legitimate criticism.
Also,
First and foremost,
let
do
me
you actually go ahead?
So let me just for the beginning, just it might help both of us throughout the conversation. Let me drop you the link to the script. So in case if you try to remember a certain wording that I use, then you can just look it up directly.
Well, I appreciate that, but thankfully I actually have bullet points here too.
Oh, so I guess a combination of both will probably be the best.
Sure.
Copy the link, and I assume, let me drop it to you. I would assume that this is
Am I the only content creator who doesn't use Google Docs for scripting?
Who does? Oh, apparently. I mean, it's. I mean, if you go in there, you will see that there are actual comments from. Okay, in this case, mostly
I see that.
who help finding visuals. Yeah, it's for collaborations. It's pretty awesome. I'm not sure if. I mean, I originally used like Word or OpenOffice or something when I was doing it local, but at some point I switched to it because for collaborations it's fantastic. And also, if you have it local on your computer and then you want to continue working on it somewhere else, you still have it available if it's on Drive.
Man, you were working on this way back in freaking April of 2018. Good lord.
I know this was I mean as I said the end of the video during the credits. This video itself was in a production nightmare because for this video 2 of my editors dropped out. Like,
Oof.
I handed it to one, and then they dropped out for IRL personal issues. Then I handed it over to the other, and they also dropped out. And then I was also too unmotivated to look actively for people. So that's why this was one of my longest videos in production. Weirdly enough.
That's fair.
But yeah.
I do on my own editing, so sometimes I get a little bit drained too. But all right, so
tell me why that stupid Superman is stupid.
All right, first and foremost, a little bit less on the topic of Superman, but in your opening statement, you state that Batman is a psychopath. And I want to know if that was a joke or if that's a belief you genuinely hold.
Probably not a psychopath, so it's exaggeration. But he is definitely mentally disturbed more than the average superhero because he has this childhood trauma on which basis he then, to an martyr degree, started to dedicate his own life to this fight against evil while completely sacrificing his own happiness. Which in many iterations get picked up on, that all this happy playboy Bruce Wayne is just a facade and Batman is always brooding and angsty. And I mean, yes, psychopath, I would not say so unless we are talking about the, what's his name, Frank Miller version. In which he might actually be a little bit borderline psychopath, but no, it was just me being facetious in a facetious way, saying he has mental issues.
Well, to a point, sometimes you could interpret that he does, but oddly enough, he's fairly well written enough to where he doesn't seem to come off as it. I guess that's just my knowledge of Batman, having followed comics since I was a child. So I have to ask real quick: do you follow any of these comics regularly, or is this just a glancing shot based on your own information?
No, I have to admit that I'm not too familiar with the comics. I have, however, watched many iterations of TV shows, movies, and so on. So I have seen, I grew up on the Adam West Batman as a child. Yeah, I know. So many people. I mean, Adam West Batman is what got the character mainstream recognition, as disturbing as it is in hindsight.
Hey, Dan. That suit was 100% all Adam West.
Oh, it was. Sometimes he put on a human suit to to confuse people, but yeah, that was all him there. But yeah, animated the Batman the animated series, as well as some of his crossovers with the Superman animated series, JLA, JLU, especially the latter ones, I watched passionately. I have seen all the modern day Batman movies from the Tim Burton ones over the what was it, Christopher Schumacher to Norton,
Joe Schumacher.
Christopher Nolan.
Yep, Christopher Nolan.
And probably some iterations or on the side here and there. So I familiarity from a bunch of media, but actually not from the original sources like the comics.
Well, at the end of this call, I'll give you some recommended reading that I think you might actually like. But let's go ahead and delve into the main subject here. All right, so one of your criticisms was that Superman's powers were inflated to comical proportions. Now, you're not necessarily wrong about that claim. However, it helps to understand why that happened. And part of the reason why that happened is due to things like the Comics Code Authority and having to water down the possible versions of violence they had to work about. There was a document listed or a document put out years before that called Seduction of the Innocent, where a quote-unquote psychologist hypothesized that comics lead to greater gang violence, that it leads to youth degeneracy, that Batman was in a pedophilic and homosexual relationship with Dick Grayson. And what happened was comics had to take a turn to the absurd to try to skirt some of that criticism. But on top of that is the fact that when you have people that aren't the most skilled writers, specifically we're talking about the Silver Age, right? The 60s and 70s, most skilled writers, all they tend to focus on are Superman's powers. And when they write themselves into a corner, they would create a new one. So again, you're not necessarily incorrect about that statement, but it helps to understand why that happened. Because when you look into it, number one, it's horrifying because you find out even now they have that power. But back then, outrage mobs were just, they got their way. They just flat out got their way. In fact, at that point in time, it almost killed the comic industry. Horror comics, stuff like that, that came to a dead stop via government sanction. It's really messed up. Thankfully, now we don't have the Comics Code Authority, and all that's kind of died down. Outrage groups have found more quote-unquote important things to worry about, like, video games. But
rock music, D&D.
The devil's game. But, yeah, that's important to understand why. Because I found when criticizing media, sometimes you have to do a little bit more deep digging to find out, well, why did this happen? Because sometimes the choices are very unique. And in this case, I think that's the best they were doing with it. If you even look at some of the covers for the comics, they got even more absurd. A friend of mine named Mike Misch, he runs I don't know if it's still popular, but at a point it was very popular webcomic called Superman is a Dick. And it highlights a whole bunch of really out of place, strange things that happened in the Silver Age. It just made Superman look like an absolute prick.
I mean, like the brainwashing?
Like the brainwashing, getting into a shootout duel with Batman, with Superman fully well aware that he's invulnerable to bullets. Telling Jimmy and Aquaman, I've stranded you in the desert. Here's a glass of water. You have to fight to the death to get it.
What the hell?
It's a mess. It is a complete mess.
This actually happened?
Yes, Jimmy Olsen making him a robe for like a present, and Superman burning it in front of his eyes, like, here's what I think of your gift. It's a complete mess. You'd have to actually read the comics to get context for all these things. But on the surface, like, holy crap, what were they doing with this guy? But yeah, that's less of an issue of you said something wrong and more of an issue of
understanding the history behind it.
Correct. Now, on to my second point. It's Kryptonite's effects and why it is. You were criticizing the fact that it came from Krypton, so did Superman, and it can hurt him. Well, there's a couple of reasons for that. Kryptonite was introduced as a plot point because the writer at the time said in a 1993 interview, later, of course, about 30 years later, found Superman's invulnerability to be boring.
Thank you. I feel understood by this man.
Yes. But there are ways around that. We'll get into that later, because unfortunately the whole throw kryptonite at him thing, that also becomes a weak
own problem
point.
Yeah.
But the reason why kryptonite hurts Superman is actually due to the yellow sunlight effect. Because Superman's home planet, yes, in reality, suns don't have a color; they're white light, right? It's all filtered by whatever the atmosphere has. But in the world of Superman, in that fiction, individual stars have individual colors that they emit. And Kryptons, specifically in the comics, because I know in the radio play, Krypton and Earth were apparently on opposite sides of the sun. That's a mess. But in the actual continuity of the comic, Krypton was under a red sun. And under a red sun, kryptonite or core parts of Krypton don't emit any radiation because it's not fed into them.
So
and that's why
basically, for the same reason that he develops superpowers once he is under Yellow Sun, Kryptonite under Yellow Sun develops its own quote-unquote superpowers by being radioactive and toxic.
Well, it's not even a superpower; it just changes its radiation. It actually has some play in reality. Matter of fact, we actually have a substance that we call kryptonite now. I can't remember what its actual effect is. But on the red sun planet, kryptonite doesn't do dick because it doesn't feed into that type of radiation. It doesn't produce it because of the type of sunlight that's filtered in. That's also why Superman is basically a normal humanoid on a planet like Krypton. But on Earth, where you have the yellow sunlight in Superman's fiction, it changes the genetic matrices of the kryptonite, makes it toxic. And it's not toxic to Superman. In small doses, it's not toxic to people, but it is toxic if you're around it for a long point of time. And
like a certain bold super genius did.
Yes, because Lex Luthor took it 2 steps too far. Number one, he created a superpower by it. And in the comics, this dummy injected it straight into his veins along with Bane's venom.
To make him to protect him from Superman, but with slight side effects.
There are ways you can use kryptonite. There are ways you can smartly use it. But its effects and its purpose make sense within the continuity, especially if you understand how the world is built around there. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because can it be cheap? Yes. People will talk about, well, Superman can get beat by a rock. All while misunderstanding most characters can get beat by a rock if they get hit in the right place hard enough.
Very true.
So it can. Go ahead.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we agree on the general criticism that I had about it being, as a plot point, creating this artificial weakness. I was not aware about this aspect where it's like, hey, just as the red sunlight suppressed the superpowers of Kryptonians, it also suppressed the radiation effect of kryptonite. So that's a piece of knowledge I didn't have, and where I am like, that I could have done better research for the video in that aspect. But I believe it was funnier this way. No, no. So far, I already am like, yes, I learned something today.
Oh, you're going to learn some more because we ain't done.
Oh boy! Boy!
So, you made a comment that in fiction he's smarter than everybody else, right? He has super intelligence. Well, yes and no. When most people talk about intelligence, like you and I, if we were talking about somebody being really smart, that's usually on the breadth of knowledge they have, right? So you talk to about, let's take my wife, for example. She's a histology technician. She knows a lot about biochemistry. She is very intelligent about biochemistry, right? I can say that. But the way intelligence is actually measured out scientifically isn't the same as a breadth of knowledge. What it talks about is your ability to
process with your brain.
Process it.
Not knowledge, but yeah.
Yes, but in this case, Superman's intelligence isn't a matter of his breadth of knowledge. It's a matter of how quickly he processes information. The reason he's able to do the processing of information is because of his physiology. So he's not as smart as Batman or Lex Luthor or Iron Man in terms of the breadth of knowledge. They outclass him in just about every single way. But when it comes to absorbing information and spitting it back out, Superman's quicker simply by his biology. So that's why Superman can process information quickly, but sometimes he still makes really goofy decisions, or he doesn't think everything through properly, or Batman's around and has XYZ knowledge that Superman doesn't. Because in that indication, it's not that Superman's smarter than everybody else, because there are characters that can process information quicker than him, like Flash. Flash can do it much quicker. Flash can react to things on the within an attosecond, and an attosecond is how quickly light passes from one end of an atom to another.
Yeah.
In
this point, I would say, about this point, I would say, I haven't found. I basically just found a list with all his powers,
Okay.
Which is why I was able to produce this list, and I found this statement of genius level intelligence. So I didn't find the necessary context within the comic. And I would still say, like, if you hear just the phrase genius level intelligence, I don't necessarily think about just the processing power of, oh, what I see around me and how quick I process it by my physiology. But I also think, like, because I would say, besides the processing power and knowledge, which Luther and Batman, for example, both have, I would also say they have one more thing, namely that they also have a way to think, like their creativity. Like Superman, often enough, even if he had even if he has a super high processing power, he still doesn't see through one of Lex Luthor's ploys because he is simply lacking this kind of evil genius, as to explain one term of genius with another term of genius. Great job there, me. But
Superman lacks the malice. That's what it comes down to.
yeah, or I mean, when he's up against Batman, I wouldn't say that it's necessary malice, but this
Oh, I
kind of
would.
like,
Knowing Batman, I can actually tell you it's malice.
okay, fair enough. But yeah, how he gets surprised by people or something. So processing, and I have the feeling that, yeah, that's it's a third level, like intelligence as in processing power, knowledge as in what you can drive on, and way how to use those two combined to, like, creativity or whatever name you can put on it. And I would say that I don't see him have this, maybe because his ideals blind him a little bit to it, or that he simply doesn't have this creativity in his thinking. And therefore I found the term like genius, and I assumed genius level intelligence would imply that he also has this kind of like brilliance. And I was like, wow, now not even a Lex Luthor or Batman has anything over him. But okay,
Well,
I mean, but with this angle that this probably refers to his processing power, I can be like, okay, that's a lot more satisfying as an explanation.
correct. All right, so let's go ahead and get up into the team up imbalance that you brought up. And I know you primarily brought this up with the Snyder films, but
Versus JLA as comparison point.
yes, the truth is, even with the Snyder films, though I'm not the biggest fan, I'm going to go ahead and say that right now, there really isn't an imbalance. And the reason why I'm going to bring that up is because there are several things Justice League members that our Superman can do that Superman can't. And we'll get into that more later because that's actually going to be my final point here. But there's not an imbalance when you look at the breadth of villains they deal with here. Because the Joker poses a completely different threat than, say, Solomon Grundy or Grodd or any of these other characters. The Joker is going to push Superman in terms of his moral values, because that should actually be the main focal point of anybody who's writing a Superman story. Older ones, obviously, they focus more on his powers, but the truth is, it's supposed to be about his character. What does a man with godlike power do in a world that's screwed up? And he has to measure out those values, those morals, and balance it with real application in
Yeah,
terms of the
easy.
things he's in.
He found the Justice Lords.
So that's how it has to be. That's how it's written out. Like, Wonder Woman's enemies can give Superman a run for his money because usually they're based in magic. And while Superman isn't weak to magic, and some people surmise, he doesn't have invulnerability against it. For example, if somebody uses magic and levitates and throws a rock at him, that's not going to hurt him because it's just them using magic to throw the rock.
Yeah.
However, if somebody hits him with a magical lightning bolt, that's going to sting because he doesn't have invulnerability to the magic itself. So there's a different rogues gallery from every single member of the Justice League that could pose a threat to Superman in terms of either his moral value or even his power set. Flash's enemies can actually do that too, like Mirror Master. How would Superman fight against Mirror Master? He'd have to figure out a way to outsmart him because Mirror Master is able to travel between mirrors, and heat vision's not going to do anything about that, neither super speed or super strength. So you have to think outside the box. So it's not really an imbalance because Superman can't just, unless he just goes full on removing all of his morals, he's not going to be able to deal with the entire pantheon of the rogues gallery that the Justice League deals with, simply by the fact that they have different values and different power sets that he's not really attuned to dealing with. That's why these other characters exist. Batman exists to balance out characters like Joker. Wonder Woman exists to balance out characters like, Ares. That's how these things work. That's how comics, when they're well written, tend to come off. That's all I got to say on that stuff.
Yeah.
On that subject.
Yeah, I mean, the problem probably is that we are very limited. We only got to see them team up against basically 2.5 villains. I mean, we have a little bit of Lex Luthor in BVS, where it also is like, really, how was Superman not able to, this power level, Superman overcome Lex Luthor and his ploy? I mean, I'm not sure if it was How It Should Have Ended or some other parody, which was like, yeah, he just needs to use his hearing, figure out where Martha is, fly there with his speed that he now has, free her, and then come back to Les Luthor while he's still standing on the helipad and be like, you, dude, I'm not fighting Batman, you are done, bro. Because at this point, seeing Justice League, that he is on Flash levels of speed without a problem.
We'll look at that later.
Yeah, but yeah, he is like, his speed is so off the chart at this point that it's like, how could Lex Luthor even pose a threat? But yeah, then we have the other two enemies that they fight as a team actually, which are like, I believe it's is it Doomsday supposed to be in the BVS? I believe it's Doomsday. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to say because he looks so different.
No kidding.
But yeah, they have Doomsday in BVS at the end, and they have Steppenwolf in jail, Justice League. And both of them, maybe that's the downside, that both of them are just simply physically so insane strong that Superman, as the physical punchy guy, is the one to approach them, to deal with them best. But yeah, it's still. But this also would raise a question like how Doomsday is. I mean, Doomsday was able to best Superman, and Superman, while Superman actually used a weapon versus barehand Doomsday, even so, yeah, his death specifically in Batman versus Superman. So many ways how they could have avoided it.
But
yeah,
I know.
But yeah, let's not go into the bad writing of the fight. Let's go into the problem that comes with his power levels. Like, even though his power levels make up half the arguments for like why they should have easily been able to defeat Doomsday. But yeah,
yes and no, because you also got to keep in mind Doomsday in the movies. Granted, also in the fiction, but to a lesser or to a more interesting extent. He's just an altered Kryptonian, so he's going to have generally the same level of invulnerability and strength Superman is. So that's what makes him a threat in that case. So it makes sense to have the big punchy guy deal with him. But you know how this movie should have ended. It was a lot smarter.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you have literally the guy who's not harmed by kryptonite go shank him instead, right?
Yeah.
Like the one. Good God.
Yeah. Or like Wonder Woman. Just let her throw the spear or anything. But yeah, many ways to explain this. But then again, that we still have the issue with the super speed. Like, okay, either Superman has super speed and Doomsday doesn't, then Superman should be easy to get around him and poke him in the back with it or something. Or, as you said, they are both basically Kryptonians, so they both should have the same level of speed. How did Wonder Woman and Batman ever have any chance against Doomsday to even survive?
Because Doomsday is not in that movie, but also in most fiction. Doomsday isn't a very cognitive creature.
Yeah,
he doesn't think logically. He only processes heavy information to do damage, and super speed isn't something he really thinks about. He can do it, but he only does it when he absolutely needs to, when he wants to do the most possible destruction. At least in the comics, we'd have to delve deeper into Snyder's his reasoning for a lot of things, and I really can't do that. So we're going to get back to the super speed because that's another point I want to bring up later. But let's go ahead and move on to another point if that's okay with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe trying to figure because to have a closing argument on the team up problem. Because yeah, maybe it just got emphasized through the nature of the movie that to focus more on Justice League, because that's where the actual big team up happens, and that maybe it's an issue with the story that the solution just happens to be so punchy powerhouse related, where all the magicalness of Wonder Woman, the smartness of Batman, the also power, physical power of Aquaman, I guess, because he is
Mhm.
neither in water nor has the animal friends with him, so it boils down to him being strong. Or Cyborg, that all of them are. I mean, we first see all of them going up against Superman, and he is just like wiping the floor with all four, like Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Flash, all four at the same time, and he's just wiping the floor. It's not even that he is breaking a sweat over them, which is like the level between them is already like insane. And then he comes in and can knock out Steppenwolf with one punch, while all the others combined basically can barely slow down Steppenwolf. And it's like, yeah, if Superman would have been around from the beginning of the movie and would not have taken his self-discovery trip after his resurrection, spoilers, I guess. So, um, um, if he wouldn't have taken that, the movie could have ended an hour earlier. He could have just gone in there, punched Steppenwolf without any drama, without anything, because he was so much stronger than anybody else that there would have been no story if he just would have focused on finishing the actual threat. And if he wouldn't have taken his day off, then yeah, the entire Justice League wouldn't be required. And this also kind of undermines anything they achieved without him, because yeah, it's just like yeah, all their bothering, everything they did was basically like only trying to pick up the slack for when the actual person who actually can do and achieve shit is done taking his break. I mean, in a playful way, and I will admit that I liked the scene, they even presented this within the movie itself, where Flash is doing his very best to save like a car full of people, while Superman is literally at the same time saving an entire building full of people. It's like, there you see this difference in scale, and it undermines the contribution of everybody else, and makes you wonder, yeah, what's the point? What is the next movie where Superman is on board from the beginning? I mean, I don't think there actually is any sequel to the current
No.
JLAU planned anymore. But yeah, if there would have still been one, what would actually be the thing? Because if the next villain comes in and if he doesn't happen to be magical, Superman on the power level he got presented with in this movie at the end, if he is on board with trying to solve the plot from the beginning, how would we even create a threat where Superman, where the rest of the team has anything to do? I mean, at the end, in the after credit scene, we saw Lex Luthor team up with Deathstroke. Like, oh ho ho, two normal humans with, I believe Deathstroke, depending on the iteration, has a handful of superpowers, but nothing on the level of anybody on the JLA. On the Justice League. So, those two normal humans. Oh my, what can they do to challenge Superman plus his fan club? That's where my problem comes in. Like, without his break in the middle of the movie, there wouldn't even be a movie. It was just waiting for him to get his shit together and punch the villain into submission. And this is where probably my problem comes from, that I grew up with Superman from the animated series and from JLA and JLU specifically. I love those two shows the most. I watched both of them in completion more than once. And in there, Superman, yeah, he's still physically the strongest, but he is not so many leagues on top of everybody else that the other people become meaningless around him. It is like, I believe before in JLA, so before they got all the people involved, there's this one episode where the JLA, actually like only the 5 members have trouble playing as a team. And I believe that a specific point was that Superman is just smashing Batman's training course and is like, I can do everything by myself anyways. But at the end, they get confronted with a team up of villains, and just him being strong and punchy was his strength and speed was not enough to defeat all those villains by itself. However, Snyder's Superman, I would say, yeah, if Snyder's Superman would have been faced with the same villain team up, he would be able to overcome them all by himself. And yeah, that's my the overall point where I'm like, this Superman is too strong to justify him teaming up with anybody because he's already he can solve everything by himself actually better than them.
Well, I don't agree, and here's why I don't agree. First and foremost, while Superman did show a greater feat of strength, Flash still ultimately rescued more people. So there's that going forward. Now, the reason why Superman was needed in the film to deal with Steppenwolf is actually going to be something I'm going to have to mold into my next argument here. Because Steppenwolf isn't just some random metahuman. That's the thing. A lot of these characters that we're going to have to be delving into, they're not just random characters in this sense. What they are when it comes to this is a bit more intricate, but we're going to get into that in my next argument here.
I love a good segue.
All right. Only Lex and Darkseid can push his limits. We're talking about, all of his powers and all that. This is incorrect, and it's incorrect for a couple of reasons. The only reason Lex Luthor is able to push him is because Superman won't kill him. Lex Luthor, he makes himself immune to law. At one point, he became president. He schemes. He does a lot of backroom stuff. That's why he pushes Superman. There are other characters that do, and other characters that do quite a bit. Doomsday, obviously, is a good example in terms of physicality, but you also have characters that try to challenge him intellectually. You also have characters like, what's his name from What's So Funny About Truth, Justice? Manchester Black. You also have magical characters that push him. There's a massive list of Superman's rogues gallery. Heck, even down to Cyborg Superman or Metallo or all these other characters, they all do push him. Darkseid is a very specific one, though, and one I think we need to talk about because it came into the Steppenwolf argument. Do you know what exactly Darkseid is?
Counterpart to the new god, so I would say he's also some kind of god tier being.
He is, but maybe not in the way you're thinking. Darkseid, and by extension, his minions, including Steppenwolf, they're living ideas. Darkseid isn't just some random alien metahuman. In the DC continuity, Darkseid is the very idea of evil. That's why he's a threat to Superman and why he's mainly Superman's enemy. Because in the construction of DCU, Superman is the ideal of a superhero. He's the ideal of the super good. He's the ideal of humanity's ability and their potential. Darkseid's the opposite of that, but so much worse. Every single evil event in DC, from the creation of Doomsday to the murder of Bruce's parents to the murder of Flash's mom, they all stem from Darkseid. His entire he doesn't even exist within the normal confines of the DCU. He exists on a different reality. He's a living embodiment. He's an idea. That's why you can kill his physical form, but he still exists and will regenerate and linger. That's why Steppenwolf needed to be dealt with by Superman, because he's an extension of Darkseid, and as such is an extension of a living idea. He's not simply a mere metahuman villain that you just punch and he goes away. You have to hit him hard enough with an ideal to keep him down long enough. So while the other superheroes ultimately do stem from Superman in the sense of not just comic reality in terms of history, but also within the DC proper. To keep in mind, I'm mostly talking about comics here. Whether or not Snyder used this is just me kind of death of the authoring here. That's why you need Superman to deal with characters like Darkseid. Because even when you put Batman against him, as much as I love Batman, Batman's usually outclassed. And I only say usually because there are times when he's gotten help and has been able to checkmate Darkseid, but he can't really beat him. Darkseid is smart enough to where when he dicks with somebody, he does it in a way that's going to be effective. There was one specific comic storyline in Batman and Superman where a villain had altered the timeline. And every time he altered it to try to make it to where Superman and Batman were under his control, it screwed things up royally. And at one point, they get confronted by Darkseid, and he's like, I didn't ever do this because I know how stupid it is. If it wasn't stupid, don't you think I would have done it before? Darkseid pushes Superman because he's the antithesis of him, both even in a cosmic ideology, in a cosmic measurement of these characters by ideals. Again, Darkseid's the living idea of evil. He's a form of chaos. That's why.
I am.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if this argument actually doesn't make me feel worse about Superman, because to say like, okay, here we have this dude who is the embodiment of evil as you describe it, and his counterpart is Superman. Now, from being just an absolutely overpowered meta-human or alien or whatever you want to call Superman, Superman is now on a level of, well, whatever the counterpoint to the idea of evil is. So I guess the idea of goodness.
No, it's probably me using the wrong word. When I say counterpart, I mean like he opposes him directly.
Yes, but that he can oppose him to a certain degree makes it even like makes it by making Darkseid. I mean, I already accepted Darkseid as an insanely powerful entity, but by being like, oh yeah, he is the embodiment of evil, and Superman can go toe to toe with him. I believe in a one-on-one fight, Superman usually uses without a support.
When it comes to fighting Darkseid, right?
Yeah.
You can fight the physical being of Darkseid in terms of his avatar that he projects into reality, but you can't really win. Even in an incident like Final Crisis, where Darkseid was physically dying, like even in his altered world state, Darkseid just comes back. So when I say he's the antithesis, he's a counter of Darkseid. I don't mean that in the sense of Superman so good and pure. Superman, in the sense, he's supposed to idealize the human desire to be incorruptible, the human desire to fight against evil, because that's ultimately what Superman's goal is. Truth, justice, the American way. Never-ending battle, stuff like that. That's in the way he's the antithesis to Darkseid. If you're looking for the real life antithesis to Darkseid, that would be the Source, and that's. Or the Presence, and that's an entire massive can of amazing worms written by freaking Grant Morrison, and we're gonna go down the recommended reading list later.
What was the anti-life equation or something is the term for it?
No, the anti-life equation is it's never defined what it is.
Okay, but Darkseid is after it, isn't he?
Yes, because it would subjugate all of reality in his world to his will, because it brings about mathematic formulation that proves that life is meaningless. Now, personally, my belief, the anti-life equation, is proof to these fictional characters that they are fictional characters. That's what I think the anti-life equation is.
That would make sense. I mean, okay, most of those I'm not sure, has DC their own wall-breaking characters like Deadpool running around who acknowledge their fictionalness?
Yes, only one.
Mxyzptlk. This guy. This is the little flying leprechaun-looking dude, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's a reality warper. The world, hold on.
Which is fitting given the context.
Well, he's a reality warper, but there was actually one panel somebody did years ago. It's like, hey, I'm Mxyzptlk. To you, I'm a fictional character. But am I really? Because at the end of the day,
I'm just the author.
Well, not just that. It's like, you know who I am, but I'll never think of you. It's really clever. It was really clever. I'm like, I hate this character now. But no, when you delve into, because it was done by Jack Kirby, right? The Fourth World, the New Gods. It's really intricate and really interesting, because the entirety of the DC multiverse, it centers around Superman, and it's supposed to be meta narrative, right? Well, it doesn't center around Superman because of his superpowers. It centers around Superman because of who he is as a character, and because every single superhero came from Superman. You can track every single superhero in modern fiction back to Superman. It does not matter their point of origin. We could take Kamen Rider, right? Kamen Rider in Japan. You could trace him back to Superman. You could do the same with My Hero Academia. You can do the same with Goku. You can do the same with other characters from other fiction. If they're superheroes, they can all be traced back to Superman.
Really?
And that's what they're trying to get at with the meta narrative. That's the reason why Superman can't be really erased from reality in terms of DC. It's not because he's super powerful. It's because he's the linchpin. That's what Dr. Manhattan had to deal with here recently. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but are you familiar with the Flashpoint event?
I probably heard about it, probably mentioned by Linkara when I was still following him religiously. Um, Refresh my memory.
Okay, so Flashpoint happened when Flash tried to go back in time to save his mother. He wound up
Oh
creating.
wait, I actually saw the movie version of it.
Yes. When he
Okay.
went to correct things, it created the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, New 52 got rebooted into what's called Rebirth, which is what we're in now. A while, people thought it was the Flash that ultimately caused it, but we found out it wasn't. Have you ever seen Watchmen?
Sadly, only the movie. Yes.
Well, it's good enough. At the end of it, Dr. Manhattan talks about how he's tired of this world. He's going to go find other places to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? He went to the DC continuity. That's where he went. He went to the mainline DC continuity and he started dicking with things. Timelines, matters, people, places. Because he was curious, because this is a timeline he doesn't know everything about. He had a form of omnipotence. Time moved around him in his own universe, but in this one, he couldn't see what was going on. He's like, what if I do this? What if I do that? So that's why there were incongruities within that. And in the recent Superman Doomsday Clock, where Superman and Manhattan had their final showdown about all this, and it comes out as a story of hope. Manhattan had been dicking with the timeline. He's like, what if I move Superman here? What if I do this? What if I... And he realized everything centers around him because he's what brings all these characters together because he was the first. So it doesn't matter if Superman shows up in 1942 or 1939 or 1987 or 1992 or 2001. Anytime he messed with it, you had different results. But at the end of the day, it still comes down to Superman. And that's not because he's OP, that's because of the characterization and how he's written and who he's supposed to be. That's why he is the character that can go not toe to toe with Darkseid, but a character that is the biggest threat to him in the continuity of the fact that his influence, his legacy, is a challenge to Darkseid's rule, and that's the way Superman should be constructed.
Question for specificity. Ugh.
Sure.
So when you say that Superman is the first one that spawned them all, I mean this on the one hand sounds, because you mentioned Goku and other completely DC foreign IPs. So we are on one hand talking about meta context, like he was in reality the inspiration for many superheroes. He was the archetype superhero. But now this meta idea of him being the one, now you describe it that it kind of this idea bleeded back into the comic book world itself.
Yes.
But in the comic book world itself, I am pretty sure there have been, in the chronologically speaking, other superheroes before Superman reached Earth. I mean, they probably invented some heroes where they were like, oh yeah, they have been around since then, and Superman only landed on Earth then and then. So chronologically, he is not the first, correct?
It depends on what continuity we're talking about, and more so to the point. Again, it's about meta narrative and meta context. So, what's going on here?
Because
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because while I have not a big issue with being like, okay, from a meta level, we understand that he is the ultimate idea of a superhero. He is the one that inspired all modern superheroes and so on. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a fine and interesting aspect, but the moment we are like going back into the canon of the DC universe and be like, oh my boy, he is so essential that literally the entire universe around evolves around him, like not just metaphorically but factually within. Like we have this god character of Mr. Manhattan, and he looks at it and plays with time itself and realizes, oh boy, this guy is so super special. It actually makes me feel even less in favor of Superman, because he sounds now like the ultimate like, I mean, he kind of is the ultimate power fantasy, but it's like, oh boy, he is literally the center of all existence. He is just that special, and this is kind of like off-putting to my point to my taste.
Well, it might be off-putting to your taste, probably because of how I'm pitching it here. Within the actual within the actual context of the story, it's actually really fascinating. It's less off-putting
Yeah.
because the focus has to be on who Superman is as a character. All this meta narrative is nice fluff around him, but ultimately it comes down to the character itself. And that's why I'm going to give you some recommended reading at the end of this, because unfortunately, Superman is the most well-known fictional hero, but he's also the most poorly written when it comes to people who write for him. Unfortunately, for some reason, these clowns also handed him off to Brian Michael Bendis, and I don't know why they did that. Not that you recognize the name.
No, I don't.
But within the context of actual timelines, that's a different thing to discuss altogether. So unfortunately, unless you want to go on another hour tirade, definitely go into that. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next point, because it actually ties into what you're talking about, Justice League. He pushed them around like they're nothing, referring to the members of the Justice League. Yes and no. The reason why is because up until the very end there, they were trying not to kill him. They just wanted to subdue him. That's why it seemed like that. That's why it seemed like, hey, they're losing so badly. Well, they didn't want to kill him all over again. They just got him back. That's kind of the point. So Flash, if he wanted to, can do a lot of damage to Superman. It's just that he wasn't actively trying to kill him. The same thing with Wonder Woman. She literally has something that can hurt him. Two things. She has her magic lasso, which can usually restrain him, and her sword, depending on the continuity, is either magical itself or it cuts on a microscopic level, both of which can hurt Superman badly. As far as Aquaman goes, yeah, he's got some magic. That's not really too much he can do to Superman, though. So you might have me on that one. And, of course, Batman, depending on how he's written, he might have, like, a kryptonite ring or whatever. But in that point, they were actively trying not to kill him. So I don't think that's an accurate assessment on your end that, you know, they're getting pushed around like they're nothing. Well,
it's
how often, you know, go ahead.
Under the aspect of pure raw strength. I mean, yes, they didn't use weapons on him, but they were like all three, like one on the arm, one on the other arm, and Cyborg with his rocket boosters on his chest. And yeah, they were just trying to seduce him. But even in this context, he is just like flopping his arms around and sending all three of them flying. That's like, at first he does not move, and they all with full power go against him, and then he's just like, go away, guys. I have to deal with this speedster now. That's what I mean with completely overpowered. And Wonder Woman is also supposed to have extreme superhuman strength. So
yeah, but is that more of a fault of the character or the writing, though? Is what I'm getting at in this case.
Well, I mean, the entire aspect of that, when I say that Superman is stupid, is like him not as a character, as his personality, but as his character with his power level and consequently his role within a story. And if you write him with this level of power, where he can just swat an entire team of superheroes aside, like they are annoying flies, then yes, of course, ultimately this is the fault of the writing, but it still ends up that this writing causes the character to be this strong, this above everybody else, strength-wise.
Well, I think the issue in that case is less of the writing for his strength, because that seems to be your most pointed issue here. His strength isn't the problem. It's the problem-solving ability they're having here, right? I could write it to where Superman could be that level of strength, and people have before. You just have to mess with how you would have them subdue him, because you don't want to subdue a strong man with physical strength. You want to be intelligent about it. And when you have a character like Batman there, who just sort of, I don't know, guys overpower him, that's my issue with the writing in that sense.
I mean, Batman did not do that. He was not part of this. He actually was out there getting Lois Lane in, so that he actually used the outsmarting tactic.
He used it, but he used it later. Like, it's a massive issue I have. Like, you don't try to overpower a strong person. You got to be smarter than that. And even without Batman there, you have somebody who's been around for about 100 years at this point. Like, you have Wonder Woman. You have Flash, who is a literal scientist. And you have Cyborg, who is literally part machine. And you have Aquaman, who's Fishman. Like, 3 of the 4 of these people are very intelligent, or at least should be. Why was brute force their first assumption of how to deal with him? That's my issue.
It's an absolutely legit issue, but yeah, both of those issues exist, I would say. I mean, yearly issue, I completely agree. Yes, why it's like, oh guys, let's go physical with him. But on the other hand, now that they went physical, I'm like, yeah, he is so much stronger. That I mean, coming back to the very end of the movie, where like him coming in and punching Steppenwolf is his strength is literally the solution of the movie. Now we are back to the point like, is it just bad writing? Where we probably both agree that this could have written so much better. But at the end of the day, this is what I have. I have this movie in front of me. This is the most recent iteration of Superman I have been exposed to, because the comics I cannot speak on because I haven't read them. And in this particular iteration, it's like all of Justice League not strong enough to handle this enemy. Superman comes in and a single punch, bam, is enough.
Well, again, we're going to give you some required reading DC movies. But no, I understand your point there, but I think it's less of his super strength, because again, that's just part of his power set and more of how they handled it. So I think ultimately, when we break it down, if we were to get on a subatomic level here in terms of conversation, I think it's ultimately always going to come down to writing. Because
yes, absolutely. I mean,
what you're focusing on are his ability sets, and a smart writer is able to work with that. Where it seems like you're unfortunately having to deal, at least from what you've consumed, mostly with bad writing. Mostly with people who focus on, I make him strong, and that doesn't really work in decent writing. But we'll go ahead and move on from that to another point that you brought up. Why doesn't he use his super speed all the time? Right?
yes.
You said that. Well, there's a reason. An actual reason has been brought up in comics. All right, so we see the Flash can move extremely quickly, right? Literally fast enough to break through the barriers of time. Why is he able to do that?
The Flash taps into the Speed Force, as far as I know.
Correct. And what the Speed Force does, it allows you control and manipulation over what you affect. That means Flash can run faster than light through a city and harm nothing. Because the Speed Force protects him and protects those around him. Superman doesn't have that. Superman has physical.
Just fast.
He has physics. Not just that, he also has physics he works with. So if Superman were to go sonic speed, that's much slower than light, through a city, he's going to destroy everything in his path. Not just in his path, but behind him and to the side of him. Superman moving at that speed would annihilate everything around him and kind of make it pointless for him to protect anybody. That's why he doesn't have that protective barrier. I mean, this is even talked about in something as non-comic accurate as, say, the New Adventures of Lois and Clark, when at one point she was like, in his arms flying across the city. She's like, how fast can you get out of here? He's like, I can technically move around the speed of light, but it would vaporize you. He doesn't have that protective aura. So that's why he doesn't use super speed all the time. He uses it very limitedly, or when he's dealing with a much bigger threat. Superman's speed isn't on the same level as Flash's. Flash is much faster, specifically when he's, not flying through things. Superman can fly extremely quickly. He can fly faster than light. Flash can go faster. That's all it comes down to. But also,
I mean,
Superman,
once again, Flashpoint, he can run so fast he can travel through time.
Well, fun fact is, one point in the Silver Age,
Superman also could this, couldn't he?
No, yes and no. The only time I recall,
it's in the old movies where he literally rotates the Earth backwards.
We don't talk about that film. Superman 4 didn't exist. But the one time in the comics years ago that I can recall, because it's really odd, Superman, I can't remember what he was doing, but he wound up going so fast. I don't know if it was by his own volition or somebody shot him into something. He went so fast, he apparently almost went into heaven.
Okay.
And the Archangel had to bat him away. He's like, nope. And he wound up falling through time because of it. The Silver Age comics were crazy, man. They were great.
Welp.
Also, same continuity where he accidentally sneezed away an entire solar system. So.
Aye.
That was magic dust that made him sneeze.
Yeah.
But no,
yeah.
That's why he doesn't use his super speed all the time, because it would do more damage than he's willing to do especially if he's teaming up with people. He doesn't want to vaporize everybody in the room.
Which is a good and fair point. I guess the only smaller counter I have to it is still like, okay, he only uses it in extreme situations. However, if he is really able to follow and process that there is a speedster around him like Flash,
Mm-hmm.
it would still, if you, it should still. I mean, this would force me to go back and watch the old Superman movies. But I have the feeling that this would still invalidate many points that he did before. That even if you would use it in small doses, that stuff should have turned out differently before. Like, I mean,
Well, there's also the fact that Superman's abilities are going to be contingent, of course, as you put a note in your video, on the amount of sunlight he currently has stored, or the amount of sunlight he currently, has been subjected to. So, in some cases, that's why his powers vary. Because in what is it? Justice League, or not Justice League, Injustice, or the latest crossover where they had him cross over with He-Man of all the asinine things. One of the reasons why Superman wound up losing the final battle is because he hadn't dipped into the sun. He hadn't been out in the sunlight for several days because he was being stupid about things. So that's one reason why his powers do vary. It's also one reason why Doomsday wound up killing him to begin with, because Superman was not really at this top physical
I mean,
form
yeah,
at that
he
time.
just survived a nuclear bomb, wasn't it?
Well, I'm also not talking about just the movie. That is a good point. I'm talking about even in the comics. He didn't exactly go into that fight fresh.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I believe somebody pointed out to me in the same video in the comments that they explain it a lot with Superman basically being like a battery. So yeah, he can recharge sunlight, but yeah, if the battery is empty, then and he isn't exposed to sunlight, that he is a lot, well, weaker.
Yeah. All right. Hold on. That is the wife. Give me a second.
Yep.
You have fooled me again like that. I thought that was you. No, it sounded like something knocked on the door. I don't know if you heard me, but that was a cat again, apparently.
Huh. They are some sneaky bastards.
Very sweet kitty, though. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. But that's why he doesn't use super speed all the time.
No,
All right, so
it's a fair point.
If you want to, we got 3 other points I can go through here. So
okay, let's tackle it.
You claim that mother boxes are basically the equivalent to the Infinity Stone. Where did you get that from?
No, this was more on the creative writing sense. I went like they are very powerful, more than MacGuffins. They are not just MacGuffins because they have certain declared power sets, as far as I know, especially with the Infinity Stones. It was more like, once again, being facetious, being like they are fucking powerful objects of this comic book universe. And in the current mindset, or in the current pop culture, Infinity Stones rings more a bit. If somebody doesn't already know what a mother box is, Infinity Stone is something to easier grasp the idea of, okay, fucking powerful singamagig.
All right, just wanted to make sure that, because they're nowhere near the same thing.
No, they are not.
All right, so on to point 9, the powers regressing to the Silver Age. Not quite. I'll challenge you on that one. While Superman has had some new abilities, and while Superman has had some very unique feats, he's still not shooting smaller versions of himself out of his fingers. He's not hypnotizing anybody. He's not mind controlling anybody. He's not changing his physical features to that of a Catman thingy. So we're nowhere near the Silver Age in terms of powers and abilities. So I will challenge you on that.
Absolutely fair. I mean, I will. It was in this context more like I see a regression. Yes, not to the full level, but it's like it. I mean, yeah, the silliness of the ability thankfully has not returned, or maybe sadly, depends on the point of view, I guess. But I mean, I believe I was mostly focused at this point in the video that his overpoweredness, that we return to his overpoweredness of these former days, while without the comical shenanigans, but from the plot bending point of view. But this is mostly reverts back to a lot of stuff we already addressed in at length.
All right, so I'm going to tell you right now. There's one of these stories I'm going to recommend to you.
Yes.
It's going to have him doing some absurd things, but it's still good. That's something I'm going to recommend to you here after we get through the last couple things. All right, or last thing rather. Back to your point of everything they can do in terms of Justice League, but better. Again, that's incorrect. And the reason why that's incorrect is because they have different abilities than Superman does. Superman can't handle magical characters as well as Wonder Woman, and he certainly can't deal with the madmen of Arkham as well as Batman can. So, again, I question why you'd say he can do everything they can do it better, because, again, he's also not even as fast as the Flash. So I think you got this idea primarily from the Snyder film as opposed to, a more rounded view of Superman as a character from various continuities. Because even in the Justice League Unlimited and the regular cartoon, like, while he had that one stage, like, I have super strength, I can do. The entire point of that episode was Superman, you can't do it all on your own.
Exactly. It might just be. I mean, as probably the conclusion and everything of the movie of my video showed, it was mostly inspired by the Snyder iteration of him, and exactly this digression that I witnessed in it. It might just come back down to the point that the villain of this movie was, as we discussed earlier, an extension of Darkseid, and there were no magical enemies, there were no Arkham level of madness enemies, so the other, that specifically when it came to Steppenwolf, the other characters simply didn't have any proper moment to shine. They were just the cleanup crew while Superman was on his day trip. So, maybe it might just be that in the context of this movie, it came across as, guys, you're all fun, but actually Big Blue is basically the only one who does it. I mean, isn't he at the end of the day even the one who rips the mother boxes aside while Cyborg was trying it for an hour or so, and he just comes in, it's like, hey bro, let me help you, plong.
I honestly can't remember. I watched that movie once.
Yeah, I believe he actually even comes in, and after Cyborg, who is himself infused with a mother box. So basically the same level of technology, and Cyborg is like for the entire battle, and Superman comes in, punches out Steppenwolf, then goes to the boxes and is like, hey bro, puts his hands in there and pulls them apart together with Cyborg. It's like, the one thing where a character does something unique to them, namely Cyborg dealing with the mother boxes, even there, Superman is the one who comes in and ultimately solves the issue. Batman, as much as I like Ben Affleck's performance as Batman, not his writing, but he pulls it off believable, I would say.
He certainly fills the suit, I'll tell you that much. He certainly fills the suit.
Well, okay, the Buffman Superman, once again, probably a matter of Batman, is probably again a matter of taste. I personally didn't like the Strongman Superman. Batman, god damn it, why do they all have a man at the end of it?
Branding.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, people pointed out that this mostly is like the Batman vs. Superman comics, where Batman also is more on the buff end of things. But I personally like him more as an agile ninja type, but I guess there you could argue that it is a matter of taste in the different iterations. No, but I would say that Affleck as Batman, the writing that he had to handle aside, was one of the highlights for me personally. But yeah, the point where I was starting is, I mean, Batman Affleck, or Affleck Batman, whatever, can really barely do much, especially in a fight. I mean, he can be the idea guy who gets Lois Lane in and maybe plans the entire resurrection shenanigans, but in a fight he even has to use a gun. Do I have to say more about him? So yeah, he pretty much useless in regards to contributing something unique to a fight. Flash, yeah, speedster, okay, but I believe he was mostly on rescue duty outside, where he as we established earlier, got overshadowed by Superman in this one instant. Wonder Woman and Aquaman being mostly on punching duty to try to keep Steppenwolf at bay until Big Blue comes in to save the day. Yeah, but Cyborg, the only one who actually gets something unique to his power set to do, and even he gets overshadowed. so yeah, I completely agree with you. It might potentially be an issue very specific to this movie with this villain and so on. But that's literally where I'm coming from when I'm saying like, wow, looking at this specific new iteration of him, which is like since probably more people are aware of a movie in cinema than the current line of Superman comics, is basically the current official iteration of him, and he is just like, yeah, rendering everybody else jobless if he has his heart into it. If he doesn't, then yeah, they get a little bit of punching. What are the demons called again? Parademons, yeah. They are allowed to take down a few parademons, but yeah, that's where I came from with this statement about him rendering the team useless. Because, yeah, in this movie he did. In this movie he actually did. This might be specific to this movie, but that's where the criticism came from.
No, I think that'd be fair in the context of the movie. But now that we're done with all the back and forths here and my arguments against things you said, I think, or I hope you've learned some things, but I'm also going to leave you some recommended readings. So let me go ahead and pull some things up here. Now, at least a couple of these stories you can substitute with the movies if you want, although I don't recommend it simply because, I mean...
They were originally comics and movies are just adaptations.
Yes. Most of these you can also find at a decent price now, so thankfully that's not an issue. Or heck, you can, yo ho ho for all I care. I'm going to recommend All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison. Really great series. It's about a dying Superman and how he wants to try to help the world as much as possible before he finally passes away.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find a decent resolution. I'm going to recommend Superman for All Seasons.
Uh-huh.
Really good storytelling by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Let's see here.
What is this one about? Like you said, the first one is about him trying to help as much before his time is over.
This tells the story of Superman when he first starts out and how things have changed throughout seasons. So it's a really homestead tale that goes back to Superman's roots as the farm boy. So I think you might dig that. Let's see here. Let's see if I can remember the name of it. That's right. I'm going to recommend Superman for Tomorrow, art done by Jim Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about... Is it get a thumbnail? It's not thumbnailing.
I mean, I can click it in the to make it show up. Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, I've seen this cover before.
All right, so this story is about a large amount of people from Earth disappearing, and Superman feeling guilty because he didn't solve it, and then finding out what actually happened. It's a trippy story, but it's really, really good. It also talks about the limits of what Superman can do versus what he can't do. And
something I'm very interested in, indeed.
I'm talking about not just in terms of his powers, but also in terms of who he is as a person. And some of ultimately it comes down to he made a decision to do XYZ thing in case of a catastrophic event, and it came back to bite him. And it seems some flaws in his character. So that's one reason why I really enjoyed this story. We go ahead and find some other things here for you. I'm going to make a recommendation on a movie.
Now you're talking my language.
Yes. I'm going to recommend Superman versus the Elite.
Ah, this is a French bunch, right? Oh yeah, I actually have seen this one already.
It's a really good one. They also did All Star Superman in movie form as well. Let's see here. You can take this for either movie or comic. They're both pretty good. Let's see here. I recommend Batman Superman Public Enemy.
Oh yeah, this. I mean, from the DC, whatever the movie line is called, where they do the cartoon movie adaptations of many
Yes.
of their milestones. I have followed them for a long time, watched them all. It took me quite a while to realize, wait, they are not they are not necessarily a chronological order. They are just milestones from all DC history. And I was like, hey, they kind of tell the story again, but different. I'm a little bit of a dum dum when it comes to that. But
It's
eventually I
all right.
figured it out. At some point, I believe around the time where this alternate universe came out, where Batman is a little vampire and Superman is actually the son of.
Son of Zod.
Hmm?
The Son of Zod.
Yeah, exactly. This movie, I came across the existence of this movie, got intrigued, did some research, found this, and found all the other movies leading up to this point. And after that, it kind of fizzled out. I need to get back in there and catch up on the all the DC movies that have come out ever since. But
Well,
yeah, I've seen Public
right
Enemy. I recall that I
now.
really liked Public Enemy.
Unfortunately, Public Enemy's follow-up, Batman Superman Apocalypse, is absolute garbage. Unfortunately, a lot of DC films lately have been.
Mm.
But let's see here. I also recommend Superman Shazam First Thunder. Really solid book. It really gets to the heart of Superman as a character because it's going to be the first time he encounters Shazam.
Who is a
And
magical powered Superman?
yes, but it's not so much about a fight. It's about Superman's morals in the sense. I'll do a little bit of spoilering here for you. He finds out, there's an incident that goes down, and Shazam accidentally, a little kid winds up dead, and
Mm.
Superman Shazam has a meltdown in Metropolis PD, and Superman confronts him in the Arctic. He's like, "You had a complete meltdown. What's going on here?" And he finds Shazam crying, and he wasn't expecting that. And Shazam reveals to him that he's just a little kid. And
Yeah.
Superman's response to the fact that he's a little kid isn't, "Well, you shouldn't." He gets pissed.
Yeah,
He's
and
like,
he goes to Shazam himself, the wizard.
"Exactly." He's
I've
like,
seen those comic strips going around on Tumblr a few times. Like,
this.
loving this scene, loving it.
Yeah, that's where it's from. The entire book is great, but
Mm.
let's see here. Let's see. This is a child's book, but it's still really solid writing. So
I see where it is. You finally figured out where my intellectual level is.
no, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying it's a really good book. God, what's the name of that book?
I mean, we both know which shows I used to watch, so.
Well, I can't talk too much. I watch kids shows all the time. Doggone it. Now I can't remember the name of it, but it came out recently. Just give me a minute. I'll remember it. There we go.
Yeah, and I guess if this discussion ends up on YouTube, obviously I would put all the links down below. Even so, it's mostly to covers, since they are actual properties that need to be purchased.
Yes. And this is another recommendation I'll make for you that's more recent.
Mm-hmm. Which would be
Superman Smashes the Klan. Real fun thing about Superman. He oddly enough he affected reality way back in the 40s, and he did that by there was a journalist who went undercover to find out what the Klan was actually about, the KKK.
Mm-hmm.
And when he found out, because before that time people kind of just assumed they were a charity or whatever, the U.S. at that time was very strange, and he tried to bring it to the rest of the press. They didn't want to cover it. Tried to bring it to the police. Well, guess who the police were? So instead, he's like, what do I do with this? And somebody, I don't know if he approached somebody or somebody from DC approached him. At the time, there was a Superman radio play. And that's what this book's based on, where Superman was in a radio play where he fights against the, I think they're called the Clan of the Fiery Cross.
Uh-huh.
They use a pseudonym in there. And using that fiction, they expose what the Klan actually is, and it wound up doing massive hits on the Klan's number and on their perception because Superman was so much bigger than the Klan, and of course he still is. So this book is a watered down only simply due to time, retelling of that radio play in comic
The
form.
mocking.
It's got great art, really good storytelling. Doesn't wink and nod to the camera as much as you would assume. So it's really good. I highly recommend it. It's coming out in full trade paperback here pretty soon, because right now it was just released in small little booklets. But let me go ahead and see here.
But yeah, that actually does sound pretty amazing. And looking at the cover, I also like the art style. I mean, it seemed okay, probably because it's a little bit more anime than normal DC products. I just realized looking at it, and I'm like, shit, I like it because it's anime. God damn it, I'm a weeb.
Also, I'm going to make a couple more recommendations here, but they're in the same line. I'd recommend Superman Rebirth. There's the first trade paperback.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like wholesome family shenanigans, you'll like that, because in this continuity with Rebirth, Superman has a kid. It's him and Lois' kid, and he is the heartwarming father you would expect him to be. And there are some fun shenanigans in Volume 2, as you can see with the cover here. There's a little bit of conflict.
Oh boy, the children. Oh, Damien. I still don't know how I feel about Damien. It probably also depends on who the writer is. Sometimes he's an unbearable little shit, but other times he is actually a decent enough troubled child character where you can be like, yeah, he got raised by assassins. Of course he's a little bit messed up, but he's trying.
My biggest complaint with Damien is how often they have him beat people in fights. And I'm trained in fighting. I'm trained in weapon combat as well. Look, you can argue distance and timing all you want, but that little kid should not be able to take a punch from a full-grown man and just be fine. No, that's not how fighting works.
No, children have weaker bones, which makes them heal easier, but also makes them break easier. So, yeah, a child which gets a full-end smash is down for the count.
This isn't related directly. This isn't a Superman book. And, I'd recommend, Yo Ho Ho, because these things are somewhat expensive. But this is an omnibus I'm going to recommend.
Mm-hmm. But you also mentioned earlier in the discussion that one of your examples you wanted to share with me or recommend me was more down the lines of really crazy, outlandish abilities. Is this already one of the ones you shared, or is this...
that would be the All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman. Superman winds up saving a spaceship from flying into the sun. And what it ultimately does, because this is a different continuity, this isn't the same as mainline DC, it ultimately overloads his cells with sunlight. So he's dying.
Oh.
He's dying because of too much power. And so it gives him, he's no longer affected by kryptonite. All of his limitations are removed.
Oh, joy.
So he has absurd feats, but it's what he does with them.
Yeah, but I just want to say, this kind of angle is something that sounds intriguing to me again, because it sounds like that his overpoweredness becomes a problem, where I'm like, okay, yeah, I want to see how this turns into a storyline.
It does and doesn't. It does in the sense that it's ultimately killing him, but it's how he uses it. His desire is, I have X amount of time on this planet. How do I help the most people? How do I fix the things that have gone wrong in a way that doesn't break my moral values? And it's Grant Morrison. I prefer him writing Superman than Batman, though while he writes Batman well, Grant Morrison, he's a little crazy.
I guess.
And I
guess it's a qualification for a good comic book writer.
Well, I mean, I don't think you understand what I mean by crazy, right? I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. We all know this. Of course, that's another conversation we've had shelved for a year. But when I say he's crazy, I mean he's crazy. The dude literally believes he was brought into an alien spaceship where Jesus gave him the power to heal cancer, but only in cats.
So do he have the long-living cats around him to prove this?
He does not. But more importantly,
weird.
Cancer is also kind of rare in cats, so...
then again, this proves it works.
You might have me there. But thankfully, his type of crazy really works well on comic books. So it's kind of fun Let me see if I can make other recommendations here. We're talking about make a couple of Batman recommendations for you too while we're here. Now, I'm going to specifically recommend this book because the film was hot garbage. Batman Hush, done by Jim Lee.
I don't think I have seen the book, which is probably for the movie, which is probably for the better, going by what you just said.
Well, unfortunately, the reason why the movie was so bad is because
Ooh.
they did Under the Red Hood.
Yeah.
Years ago, and the main focal point of this is that Batman thinks Jason Todd's alive and out doing nonsense. So that wouldn't work anymore because they've already established, well, he is alive and he's out here already doing nonsense. So let's see here.
But I see Ivy, Catwoman, Harley, Huntress. Good lineup. Oh, and Joker, I assume, is in the top right.
Yes.
It's hard to say because there's so little face. Wait, is this Bruce Wayne or Superman in the top left?
Superman.
Ah.
I'm also going to recommend this. I'm sure you've probably seen the movie, but the book's so much better.
Year One. There's a movie? Have I seen it? No, I wonder. But yeah, I mean, since you already say, like, skip the movie.
Unfortunately, they were really doing really well on their movies early on. Then they just started, oh, God, they started sucking.
Maybe I cannot recall. Maybe this is the reason why I kind of fell out of keeping up with them. Maybe because they fell a little bit flat. I don't know. But then again, I also keep seeing clips and images pop up on social media where I'm like, oh, what's this very interesting looking iteration? Then I track it back and I'm like, oh, it's one of the movies that came out 2 years ago. Why did I never notice that? So I'm not sure. I probably will at some point do a big catch up run and then, yeah.
Well, I'll this is another recommendation, but real quick on Year One, David Mazzucchelli. I really like his art because you know how Batman's usually drawn where you can see every single defined muscle and he's so freaking jacked. While I am a fan of that aesthetically, he draws how Batman would actually look.
Ooh.
And I don't mean just with the body type, like the clothes are clothes. They don't just define and highlight every muscle. That's not how human beings work.
Nope.
And that's also why I'm recommending Ego here by Darwin Cook, because he has a similar art style. But Ego is very interesting because what happens is this is early in Batman's career, and he winds up dealing with a mobster who turned on his fellow mobs by ratting them out to Batman, and the dude winds up committing suicide in front of Batman, and he's realizing, I vowed never to take a life, but my stuff has other impact, and how do I deal with that? And he literally comes face to face with his own ego. And I mean ego is in the psychological sense, not as in the arrogant sense. That he has a back and forth argument with his inner self, and it's just really well written. It's kind of kooky, but it's really well done, and I think you'd enjoy it.
Oh boy, now I need to actually come around to read comic books.
I'm thinking about doing an audio play version of it, but I'm not skilled enough for that. And the one person who does have something similar, he never finished it. So.
But yeah.
But I might come at you with some more Superman recommendations, but for Superman and Batman, I'd recommend those because they're just everything I've recommended to you are really solid, and they don't take the piss out of things. They deal with them properly, and they really know how to handle these characters. So I just highly recommend it.
Nice. I will definitely keep the list around and hopefully even come around to do something with it. Because, yeah, it's fascinating how in a time where you're locked down at home, you still don't have time for anything.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's like I save at least an hour a day with more, actually, with commute to work and back. And yet I still have the feeling the days are shorter. It's insane.
Well, just be happy you don't live in America right now.
Oh, I am, and yeah, Denim Ninja also is like, I mean, already in the context of the pandemic, it was like, whoo boy, am I glad to be in Germany instead. And now with the current situation, it's like double that. Like it's madness, and I'm feeling just horrible for anybody who has to live through it.
All right. Well, I've appreciated this conversation. It's been a long time coming.
It's true.
think we've both been at this long enough, and I've got other stuff to take care of today. I appreciate the conversation, man.
I appreciate your time and lecturing me on my rant about Superman and the faux pas I did in it. And yeah, who knows if and when we come around to talk some more reality based subjects with like religion versus atheism. Heyo, that is going to be a fun one.
Oh, it will be, but
Yeah.
I'm not. At least you're talking to somebody who's not going to go down madness, and you're not going to see arguments from me that you would see easily lambasted on our atheism. So
Yeah, I mean, I believe the main point why I originally brought it up with you was that there was some tweet one of us did, and it. The problem is this will also be over a year ago. That will be fun.
Yeah, and currently my
But-
Twitter's down, so
Yeah.
I can't even look for it.
But it was something down the lines where I was like, I don't think that Leo has the right understanding of atheism, or at least not my brand of atheism, at least. But
I don't even think it was a Twitter thing. I think it was a partial conversation in your drama chat.
maybe that even, yeah. But still, will be impossible to find. So hopefully, if we just sit down and talk about our points of view, we will reach the point where we are like, hey, I disagree. Objection.
Well, the funny thing is, like, when we were talking about it a little bit on Twitter, when that thread happened, and I peeked in, it's like, hey, like, I'm looking at the Christians, like, y'all are making really the wrong argument here.
Yeah. That was like...
You're like, I don't accept the Bible as a legitimate source. And she's like, here's the Bible. I'm like, you're missing a point.
Yeah, exactly. This is circular logic. This doesn't help.
But, like, after that, some dude, like, God, what's his name? He has a freaking Slazerlight is his name. He's like, hey, can I get in on that conversation? I'm like, what conversation? Like, the one you were talking about with Ayn Wye. I'm like, it's going to be a private one. Between you and whom? None of your business. These people insert themselves, man. The heck is wrong with your community? Bunch of freaking weirdos.
I mean, I am not even sure that this is a specific community or just Twitter, because people...
I mean, this was a brony. That's not his profile.
Could be.
This was a brony.
Could be. I mean, it is reasonable because, well, Countess is active, or at least has a source of her active. I believe she's more active still than I am. So, yeah, she comes from there. I have a strong background there, and the majority of any of my followers still recruit themselves from there. So, it's very likely that he was. But yeah, to let us both off into the sunset and to our individual lives. I greatly enjoyed this conversation.
So did I, and I will catch you next time whenever we argue about something else.
Sounds like a plan. Until then.
Later, man.
Huh? Yes, I wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I do. What is happening? The tension is killing me.
No, I said take it easy. I don't know why you thought I said wait a minute.
Oh, it sounded to me like wait a minute. So we are basically done.
Yeah.
Okay.